Hello and welcome back to another episode for MC Airsoft. I'm Mark. Today we're going to be talking about carbine setup. Now, first things first, this isn't specific to the AR platform. Yes, that's what I have, but it could apply just as easily to an AK platform as long as your foregrip doesn't interrupt your magazine reloads. That's fine. Well, to start things off, yes, it is unloaded. I just have a magazine in there because I'm going to be talking about magazines. So, for those of you who watched my previous video, I do run a 1-point generally. I am going to be getting a 2-point for this one as soon as I get a metal receiver, mostly the upper, so there's no flex when you're wearing the sling. Just to try it out, still probably going to be prefer my 1-point. I do also on my belt setup have a bungee setup so I can essentially holster the AR if I'm not going to be using it. So yeah, so sling, this is a generic bungee 1-point. This one happens to be made by Spectre. I've had this for years. I've never had an issue running 1-point. I understand other people have. I even used it on an M16. Obviously I use it on this one as the QD point. As a QD point right behind the receiver. So that makes that a little bit easier. But I even wore a 1-point on a full-length M16 with it around the end of the buttstock because that's how we had an option to attach it when I was in the Marines. So I've always worn a 1-point because my opinion is you should always have retention, physical retention, not just your sling of your rifle. Obviously there's cases where you need to be working on something or you need to sling it out of the way and for whatever reason. That's why I wear a bungee, but your mileage may vary. 1-point, 2-point. The thing to remember with those, and I'll probably do a video just about slings eventually, but 3 points are garbage, 2 points are for carrying your gun, and 1 points are for fighting. Yes, you can fight with a 2-point. You can swim out of it, you can adjust it however you need to, but that's, you're going to need to do something, whereas 1-point keeps it attached to my body, so if I trip, or if this was a real setup, if someone were to try and grab it and pull it away, it's gonna stay attached to my body. Same way I run a pistol lanyard, right? So if I'm running about, it doesn't fly, if it flies out of my holster, it doesn't get dragged behind me or anything like that, or it doesn't get lost. When I used to play, I lost a Tokyo Marui MEU when they were new, not an outdated model-ish, although Tokyo Marui still makes good stuff. I lost it in tall grass for about 3 hours on a hot day. I had to replace some O-rings and stuff after that. So ever since then, I've been running a pistol lanyard, and I always have some kind of sling, so that way it doesn't fall out of my hands if I trip or something. It stays attached to my body. So buttstock first. I don't really care too much about buttstocks. I like full stocks because they happen to fit me. As far as these go, I prefer the ones without rubber. This one does have rubber. My problem with that is it always seems to snag and drag along the shirt, and I like to keep it tucked and be able to move it without it grabbing whatever I'm wearing. So when it happens to have a rubber buttstock, I'm probably going to replace it. 1 for battery, 2 for just get rid of that rubber piece. So battery, running old school batteries, nickel metal hydride, I think, or whatever the old batteries are, because I don't really care. I want reliability and consistency more than I want fast rate of fire and trigger response. That's just my personal preference. Next is the sights. Now this one happened to come with sights. They are similar to the Magpul sights. The Magpul flip-up sights, obviously these are not them though. You can press over the top to get it to flip up, or right here there is a little tab you can pull down, which I like, especially if I'm going to be driving the rifle and I need my sight to pop up. I can access that with my thumb fairly easily. Now, if you notice, I got all these attachments in the way, and I can't really do a C-clamp unless I wedge my thumb underneath that flashlight. I don't really shoot C-clamp. I shoot generally with my thumb along the bore axis. Even with real steel, that's just how I shoot. Your mileage may vary. Got the same kind of flip up sight on the back. Interesting thing about these, again, they came with the gun. This is the adaptive armament rifle, which I will be reviewing at some point. Interesting thing about these though is they have pistol sights on top. Let's see if we can get that on camera. So rear sight there, and a blade for your front sight. So being that my riser, it does have the hole there, I can, if I really wanted to, line up underneath. But the way I have it set up with the riser on the red dot, they do co-witness. Now, do you want fixed sights, flip up sights? What do you want? It's really going to be up to you. I don't really care for airsoft. For real steel, I prefer fixed front sights, at least with a flip up rear sight. Obviously on my Mark 12 build over here, I got the CAC flip up sights, which cannot co-witness with the scope. It's just how that works. But they're still good if I am at a prolonged op or something like that. If I go to a milsim, which I will be here next month, going to my first milsim. If the scope breaks or it has a major malfunction some way, I can always just rip it off, go with my flip up sights for the rest of the game. I'm still able to play. I don't have to just put the whole rifle down and grab a different rifle. Charging handle, doesn't matter, it's aesthetics. I don't really care about all the extended nonsense. I think that stuff gets in the way, especially being a left-handed shooter. Bolt release, this isn't a gas blowback, so I don't really care about the bolt release. It just is there to retain the bolt cover, whatever you want to call it, imitation bolt, so I can access the hop-up easier. Sling plate, I like these offset ones better than the QD ones, because as I am grabbing the rifle, it tends to get in the way less. Fire selector, just the normal one. I tend to shoot with my middle finger. I even did that in the Marines. For real steel, I do it still for real steel, because it allows me to manipulate the safety with the pad of my hand, that first knuckle there, because I'm a left-handed shooter. I know it looks like right hand on the camera, but I'm a left-handed shooter. So if I went with ambidextrous, maybe, but I've never felt the need for ambidextrous. I can flip to semi, flip to full if I really need to, but flip to semi, and I am right there. So if I'm flipping, and I can immediately start going on the trigger, right? Personally, to me, a nice tight grip on the gun is going to be secondary for my rear hand. For my front hand and my shoulder, I want that nice and stable. So yeah, that's kind of my methodology back there. Magazines, this is a mid-cap. Obviously, if your event requires standard capacity, go with standard capacity. I don't like high caps. I don't like having to wind it. I understand some of the newer high caps have the little tool, you can wind it up all the way and it lasts for theoretically the entire magazine. I don't trust them. I like being able to shoot at different angles if I'm going CQB and I need to really look at what I'm shooting at instead of looking through the sight, or if I'm going around corners, I don't want to have to hold it vertically when it's at the like tail end of the mag, or else if with a high cap, you might, if you're shooting at a weird angle, the BBs might not feed and then you gotta wind it up again. I like the consistency of these, and I like that if I really need to lay down suppressing fire on full auto, I can flip it to full auto and dump 120, 180, whatever, how many rounds you have, right? These ones are, I don't know what brand they are. They were the cheapest ones that I found when I went to Modern Airsoft in Phoenix, which is the closest airsoft store I got. So now, moving forward to that, M-LOK. If you saw my M-LOK versus Picatinny, you'll know that I'm not really sold on M-LOK on its own. I think with attachments, it's pretty good because you've still got your Picatinny, you got your semi-monolithic upper, right? Where it lines up, it doesn't mate up, so it's not retained like 416, although you can get 416s and such with retention there. But I'm not really sold on it. I like the texture of the Picatinny, but yeah. So M-LOK rail. One thing to point out, it does have this cutout, which I think is really dumb, and I wish Airsoft manufacturers and even some real steel manufacturers would just stop. But there's no point to it. I'd rather have a little bit more rail space, things like that, and a little more coverage for my barrel. That way there's less room for my barrel to get knocked, right? Obviously they're fairly solid, even for the plastic receivers, but that's just my opinion. So yeah, then front sight, we already went over that, which this one is having problems because I just threw my real rifle, my flashlight from my real rifle on there because I want to talk about it real quick. So why run a flashlight? There's a few different reasons. One is in CQB, you can use it for that shock. I just clicked it on. I know you can't see that on camera, but you can use it for that shock of coming around a corner. Also, you know, just being able to light up an area and search it, right? Maybe I'm going through CQB, maybe I'm going through woods at night, and I want to be able to search an area with my rifle light. It's a great option. I wouldn't use this for so much for walking around or, you know, digging through my pack or whatever. Obviously, you want to carry a secondary light. I always carry one in my pocket. It's just a little inspection light. Some people mount them to their helmets, and that's fine too. I like to have it where I can access it with my thumb. So if you look here, I can maintain a good grip on the gun. I can pull it in. I'm maintaining my pointer finger towards the target, and I can click on and off with the thumb. And I can even drive the rifle with my thumb on the presser switch. So yeah, so I like nice full-size flashlights on there. I don't mess around too much with the pressure pads and all that. To me, it's extra stuff that can go wrong. I like being able to just switch it on, switch it off. Now, this one happens to be a Felix PD36R. It's real bright. It has lots of settings, and it is USB rechargeable, or recharges off a standard wall mount with a the newer Android thing, the USB-C, I think it is. So yeah, if I really wanted a sure grip behind it, I can, but again, I'm probably not going to. I'm either going to come up onto the top, I'm going to C-clamp-ish modified C-clamp with my thumb along the barrel, or generally I'm in one of two positions. I'm either on the foregrip or I'm on the magazine well. Now, again, as a left-handed shooter on real guns, you gotta make sure you're not impeding the dust cover, but the dust cover is already open. If you're already loaded around, you're on the range or whatever, you can just go right over the top of that. No problem. But I like magazine well. If I'm going to be there for any amount of time, I can stabilize and I can hold an area down, no problem. If I'm quickly going around cover, whatever the case is, I like having this grip here on the vertical foregrip. I understand a lot of people cut them, a lot of people do their modifications. I like this because to me this is a nice, comfortable position, and I can really drive the gun around corners if I needed to, and have full control. Yes, you can do that from here, but we'll talk about grips in a different time. That's just what I do. The only thing really you can't comfortably do is turning it off to the side, but that's gonna mess with your hop up and all that anyway. So that's my basic setup. Obviously, if you're running nods, you want IR, right? Oh, I forgot to talk about the red dot, right? So the red dot is a knockoff T1 style. I'll probably review this at some point. Red and green. I like having both colors with it has 5 different brightness settings for each. I like having different colors. So if I'm outdoors, I'm probably going to be running red, or I'm probably going to be running green. If I'm indoors or at night, I want to be probably running red. Whatever works for you, it's not really that important. I just find that the green shows up a little bit better outdoors for me. Other than that, it is a nice high mount, so I can bring it up alongside, and I don't really have to twist my head or drop my head down. I can bring it right up and look through, maintaining that good control in the pocket of my shoulder and all of that. And again, I can co-witness through here. Now, why run a red dot over just the flip-up sights? I'm gonna take the flashlight off so the rear sight will stay down, or front sight will stay down. Why run a red dot over just the sights? Personal preference mostly, but it is in theory quicker to line up, to find a dot if it's well zeroed and everything like that. Find a dot on a target rather than if I am trying to line up a front and rear sight. And generally, the bigger reticles you get on airsoft guns, they're going to have issues lining up, and it's going to be kind of floating. Not only that, I like red dots because they don't obstruct my vision of the BB. Obviously, if you're at night or something, you might not be able to see it, but they don't obstruct my vision of the BB, so I can adjust fire if I need to, whatever the case is. Now, some other things. Pec box, man. Again, if you get an actual one with the IR flashlight, IR laser, sure. If you're running nods, other than that, it's kind of useless. You can use it to mount a battery out forward, but that's going to make your rifle drag, especially if you are, especially if you have it mounted out all the way forward, where it's going to be forward of your hand. It's going to make the rifle drag. I like having the grip and the my hand as far forward as possible. Get a stop if you're really concerned about it, about slipping off in front of the muzzle. But for me, this is a good space. I can reach up and grab it however I want to hold it, and it's going to be quick. The less stuff you have out in front of your hand, the quicker it's going to be, right? It's just going to follow your arm. If you put a pec box with a battery and all that, that's more mass for your arm, forward arm to lift, and it's more mass for it to move around. So yeah. Mock suppressor, kind of the same thing. If you're running mock suppressor just for looks, I wouldn't suggest it. Now, obviously, I still have the orange tip on here because it's still under warranty, but once warranty expires, probably going to put a black tip on it, probably going to put a tracer unit on it. Now, mock suppressors are kind of dumb because they're just for looks. Now, if that floats your goat, then go for it, but it's kind of pointless. It's just more mass out in front of your barrel. It just makes it longer, or in front of your hand, just makes it longer, more unwieldy. If you're getting a tracer unit, now you have an added benefit, right? You can watch the tracers. If you're running a longer barrel through it and you just want it to cover it, then that's great too. Adds theoretically more accuracy, more FPS, whatever you're going for, that's fine. But if it's just a mock suppressor, it's kind of useless unless it's foam filled and you're running HPA for a silent gun. I'm not sold on those. I like the noise. I like the response. I think it's more what I look for, but yeah, that's up to you. Magnified optics for longer range guns like that one's shooting out to about 225-ish accurately, 250 accurately with 3.2s. So it's hard to tell with all the wind out here, but you know, it's shooting out a pretty good distance. Mostly the scope is on there for target identification. I'm actually going to switch over. So I'm going to put that one down, go over briefly the setup on this one, because it has some things that people put on smaller guns. Now, I don't run bipods on smaller guns. I don't get the point. Just, it's extra mass that you don't need. You're not really going to be going prone with it very often. The scope on longer guns, magnified scopes, kind of useless unless you are identifying targets, which if that's the case, if you're at a long range game, I recommend just bringing a pair of binos, right? Unless you actually want a longer range sight on your gun. For again, maybe you have a longer range gun. QD sling points are fine. The other kind of flip up sights that I was talking about are these metal post ones. I prefer, let's see if I can get that on camera. I prefer this style to the polymer ones. You can see the style in the back there. I prefer those to the polymer ones. I just feel like they are a little easier to use. But yeah, this video has gone long enough. That's the basic of carbine setup. Once I get the Mark 8 and Mark 12 platform more set up, I might go over that in its own, like kind of how to set up a DMR. If I get when I get a M110 kind of build, I'll probably do that for sure. As I start getting other guns, I'm going to go over how to set them up, or how I personally set them up. Again, this is how I do it personally. This isn't how I'm saying for you to do it. Maybe you get some ideas, maybe not, that's fine. But until next time, stay safe and stay hydrated.